February 15, 1944. 3B. 17 flying fortresses leave their base in England before dawn. Destination, Berlin. Crew count, 30 men total. Average age, 23. By sunset, all 3 bombers are gone. No distress calls, no mayday signals, no frantic radio traffic about fighters or flak. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes operations officers stare at empty chairs in the briefing room and wonder what the hell happened up there. Allied intelligence scrambles. They interview every crew that flew the same route. They check German radio intercepts for claims of kills. They analyze weather reports, fuel calculations, mechanical logs. They find nothing. No enemy activity reported in that sector. No battle, no ambush, no explanation. The official report reads, "Lost to unknown causes." 30 families get telegrams that say their sons, husbands, brothers are missing in action. Missing, not killed, missing. Because nobody knows what happened to them. 6 months pass. Then a French resistance fighter, moving through the Swiss Alps, stumbles onto something that does not belong there. Metal. Twisted, burned metal scattered across a snowfield at 11,000 feet. He gets closer, sees the star insignia. American. He reports it to Allied command. Recovery teams hike up. What they find stops them cold. One of the B-17 seconds. Mostly intact, fuselage crumpled but recognizable. Tail number matches. One of the 3 missing bombers from February 15th. Here is where it gets strange. No bullet holes, no flak damage, no fire scoring that would indicate engine failure or fuel explosion. The aircraft looks like it just stopped flying. Like someone turned off gravity and it fell out of the sky in one piece. The recovery team forces open the cockpit. Inside, everything is frozen. Not metaphorically, literally frozen. A layer of ice coats every surface. The instruments, the controls, the seats. And in the pilot seat, still strapped in, the body of a 26-year-old lieutenant from Ohio. His hand is still on the control yoke, frozen there. On his lap, they find the pilot logbook. The last entry is dated February 15th. The handwriting starts neat, then gets shakier. The final line reads, "Cloud, controls, can't." Then nothing. The sentence just stops. Like he ran out of time to finish the thought. They check the instruments. Airspeed indicator. Stuck at 140 miles per hour. Altimeter, 14,000 feet. Radio. Still tuned to the bomber frequency, like he was trying to call for help but never transmitted. The engines? Intact. Fuel in the tanks. No mechanical failure they can identify. So what killed him? What killed all of them? The recovery team finds the other 2 bombers over the next 3 weeks. One in the Alps, one in a valley 50 miles away. Same story. No enemy damage, no mechanical failure. Just aircraft that fell out of the sky for no apparent reason. 30 men, 3 aircraft. All lost on the same day, same route, same weather conditions. The official investigation begins. They bring in engineers, weather specialists, intelligence officers. They examine every inch of those wrecks. They interview meteorologists. They reconstruct the flight path. And slowly, quietly, a theory forms. A theory that makes the brass uncomfortable. A theory they do not want families to hear. Because the enemy that killed those 30 men was not the Luftwaffe. It was not flak guns or fighters or sabotage. The enemy was something you cannot shoot back at. Something you cannot outmaneuver or outrun. Something invisible that builds quietly around you until your instruments lie, your controls freeze, and your aircraft becomes a tomb at 14,000 feet. The official reports from this incident? Classified. Sealed for 20 years. Families were told their loved ones died in combat, died honorably, died fighting. But that is not what happened. What happened was worse, because they did not die fighting an enemy they could see. They died fighting physics. And physics does not take prisoners. This is World War II uncovered. And what I am about to tell you is the story of how clouds became killers, how ice became a weapon, and how the sky itself turned against the men who thought they had conquered it. The answer to what killed those 30 men is simple. Terrifyingly simple. But the reason it stayed classified for 2 decades? That is where this story gets complicated. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to understand why weather killed more bomber crews than you have ever been told, why the military hid the numbers, and why one crew that should have died alongside those 30 men figured out the one thing that saved them, the thing that nobody teaches you in flight school, The thing that separates the crews who made it home from the crews who are still frozen in those mountains. They called it weather, but the file stayed classified for 20 years. Why? Let me show you. What the official casualty reports will tell you about World War II bomber losses. 60% to enemy fighters, 25% to anti-aircraft fire, 15% to mechanical failure and weather. Here is what the declassified documents from 1947 actually say. Those numbers are wrong. Not slightly wrong, dramatically wrong. Between 1943 and 1944, Allied Bomber Command started noticing a pattern. Bombers were disappearing at rates that did not match reported enemy activity. Crews would take off into cloud cover and just never come back. No radio contact. No witness accounts from other bombers. No German kill claims. The official term was lost to weather accidents. Clean, vague, suitable for families. But internal memos tell a different story. A Royal Air Force study from 1947, declassified in 1995, estimates that weather-related losses, specifically icing, accounted for somewhere between 25 and 30% of non-combat casualties. Not 15%, 30%. That is thousands of aircraft. Tens of thousands of men. So why did the official reports lowball it? 2 reasons. First, morale. Telling families their sons died because of ice feels different than telling them their sons died in battle. One sounds like sacrifice, the other sounds like failure, like the machine let them down. Second, intelligence. If the Axis powers knew that Allied bombers were critically vulnerable to icing conditions, they could adjust tactics. Force bombers into high-altitude routes during winter. Concentrate defenses along corridors with known icing layers. Turn weather into a weapon, so the numbers got buried. The reports got sanitized, and the files got classified. For 20 years, the full scope of the problem stayed hidden, even from the pilots who needed to know. Now let me tell you what actually happens when ice decides to kill you at 20,000 feet. It starts quiet. You are flying through cloud. Normal procedure. Maybe you are in formation. Maybe you are solo. The cloud looks harmless, gray, soft, almost peaceful. You have flown through clouds 100 times. Then you notice a slight vibration in the controls. Nothing major. You think maybe it is engine-related. You compensate, adjust throttle, check gauges. Everything reads normal. Then your airspeed starts dropping. 5 miles per hour, then 10. You add power. The airplane feels slightly heavier. You tell yourself it is just the denser air in the cloud. You are still flying, still in control. But here is what is actually happening. Moisture in the cloud is freezing on contact with your aircraft. Every surface, wings, tail, fuselage, propeller blades, it is building, layer by layer, invisible behind the sheet metal and fabric. You cannot see it accumulating. You can only feel the airplane changing underneath you. There are 3 types of icing: rime ice, clear ice, mixed ice. Rime ice forms when tiny water droplets freeze instantly on contact. It looks white and rough, like frost. It is the least dangerous because it is light and breaks off relatively easily. Clear ice is different. Clear ice forms when larger water droplets hit the aircraft and spread out before freezing. It creates a smooth, transparent coating that is dense, heavy, and bonds to metal like glue. Clear ice is the killer, because you can accumulate hundreds of pounds of it in minutes and barely notice until it is too late. Mixed ice is exactly what it sounds like, both types at once. The worst of both worlds. Now, here is the nightmare physics. Ice does 2 things simultaneously. First, it adds weight. A B-17 Flying Fortress in severe icing conditions can accumulate 600 to 800 pounds of ice in 10 to 15 minutes. That is the weight of 4 grown men suddenly sitting on your wings. Except they are not distributed evenly. They are concentrated on the leading edges, exactly where you need clean airflow. Second, ice changes the shape of your wing. The smooth curve that generates lift becomes rough and distorted. Airflow separates. Lift decreases. Drag increases. Your wing stops being a wing and starts being a brick. So, now your aircraft is heavier and less efficient at the same time. You need more speed to generate the same lift. You are losing speed because of increased drag. You need more power. But more power means more fuel burn. And you are already heavier, which means you need even more power just to maintain altitude. It is a cascade. Every minute you stay in those conditions, the airplane gets worse. And once it starts, you are not fighting a single problem. You are fighting a system that is eating itself. In World War II, most bombers did not have modern anti-ice systems. Some had pneumatic boots on the wing, leading edges, rubber bladders that inflated and deflated to crack ice off. They worked maybe 40 to 50% of the time, when they worked at all. Some aircraft had alcohol-based weeping systems, tiny holes in the leading edges that wept antifreeze fluid to prevent ice formation. Problem: the fluid ran out fast. You had maybe 20 minutes of protection. After that, you were on your own. Many bombers, especially early in the war, had nothing. No anti-ice, no de-ice. Just prayers and hope that the weather forecast was accurate. Spoiler: the forecasts were not accurate. Meteorology in 1943 was educated guesswork. Satellites did not exist. Radar was primitive. Weather reconnaissance flights gave you snapshots, not predictions. You launched into conditions that were probably acceptable and discovered the truth at 18,000 feet, 200 miles from base, with no good options. And here is the part that keeps me up at night. The military knew. They knew the anti-ice systems were inadequate. They knew the forecasts were unreliable. They knew pilots were dying in clouds. In 1944, the Army Air Forces launched a classified research program. The program name, declassified 50 years later, was Project Ice Devil. The goal: understand how ice affects bomber performance, identify vulnerabilities, develop countermeasures, save lives. Testing ran from 1944 through 1945. Engineers flew instrumented aircraft into known icing conditions. They measured accumulation rates, drag increases, lift losses, control degradation. They documented everything. The findings were conclusive. Ice was far more dangerous than official reports indicated. Anti-ice systems were insufficient. Pilot training was inadequate. Current operational procedures were killing crews. Recommendations included mandatory ice avoidance routing, improved anti-ice technology, extended pilot training from 2 hours to 20+ hours on ice recognition and escape procedures. The report was classified top secret. Results were not distributed to operational squadrons. Recommendations were not implemented. Why? Resources. The war was ending. Priorities shifted. The bombers kept flying with the same inadequate systems and the same minimal training. How many men died because the solution existed but was not deployed? We will never know the exact number, because those files are still partially redacted. Even in the 1995 declassification, entire sections are blacked out. Sections labeled Tactical Implications and Strategic Intelligence Methods. What could possibly still be sensitive 50 years after the war ended? Current theory among historians: the redacted sections detail how Allied command knowingly routed bombers through high-probability icing zones because the strategic targets were worth the losses. The calculus was simple: lose 20 to 30% of the force to weather, but destroy the target. Acceptable loss. That is what they did not want families to know. Not that ice was dangerous, but that command knew exactly how dangerous and sent them anyway. If you are starting to feel uncomfortable, good, you should, because this is not a story about heroic sacrifice. This is a story about math. Cold, brutal math where human lives are variables in an equation. And the men flying those missions? They did not know the math. They just knew that sometimes the cloud felt wrong, the controls felt heavy, the airplane felt like it was fighting them, and they had to make a choice: stay in the cloud and hope it gets better, or do something that might save them, but definitely ends the mission. Most of them stayed, because they were trained to complete the mission, trained to trust their equipment, trained to believe that if they just held on a little longer, they could push through. Training killed a lot of them, but one crew, on one mission in March of 1944, decided to break the rules, and that decision saved their lives. We are going to meet them in a minute, but first, you need to understand exactly what happens inside the cockpit when ice stops being an inconvenience and starts being a countdown to death. Because the terror is not that the airplane fails dramatically. The terror is that it fails quietly, gradually, 1 degree at a time, until you realize you are flying an aircraft that no longer obeys the laws of flight, and by then, you are already falling. Part 3. Inside the Death Spiral. Lieutenant Paul Morrison, 8th Air Force, 321st Bomb Group. He survived the war, flew 38 missions, made it home to Pennsylvania in 1946. In a declassified debriefing from October 1945, He describes what it feels like when ice starts winning. His words, not mine. You do not notice it happening. That is the thing nobody tells you. It does not announce itself. There is no alarm bell, no red light. It just creeps in. Like somebody is slowly turning down the volume on your airplane. Morrison's crew encountered severe icing over the North Sea in January 1944. They were at 18,000 feet, cruising at 160 miles per hour, engines running smooth. Normal flight. Then he felt it. A slight vibration through the control yoke. Just a buzz. He thought it was engine-related. Checked the gauges. Oil pressure normal. RPM normal. Cylinder head temps normal. Everything said the engines were fine. So, he ignored it. 2 minutes later, his airspeed dropped to 155. 5 miles per hour. He added a bit of throttle. Compensated. The vibration got slightly worse, but the speed came back up. He told himself it was just turbulence in the cloud. They had been in cloud for 12 minutes. Standard stuff. Another 3 minutes. Airspeed dropped to 145. Now he was losing 10 miles per hour and he did not know why. He pushed the throttles forward more. The engines responded, but the airplane felt wrong, heavier. Like someone had added cargo without telling him. His co-pilot noticed it too. Controls feel stiff, he said. Morrison agreed. The yoke was not moving as freely as it should, not dramatically worse. Just slightly more resistance. Like the airplane was wearing gloves. Then, the real problem started. His airspeed indicator started behaving strangely. It showed 140, then 145, then back to 135, fluctuating. He tapped the glass. Sometimes, that helped if moisture got into the line. The needle jumped to 150, then dropped to 120. Which number do I believe? He remembered thinking. Am I fast or slow? Am I safe or am I about to stall? His altimeter started drifting too, showing a climb when he was not climbing, then showing level flight when he felt the airplane sinking. The numbers stopped matching reality. And that is when the fear started. Because when you cannot trust your instruments, and you cannot see outside because you are buried in cloud, you lose your anchor to truth. You are flying blind in every sense. No visual reference, no reliable data. Just a machine that is lying to you while slowly dying underneath you. Morrison's engineer came forward from the radio room, looked out the small side window, came back with a face that Morrison described as gray. Sir, we have ice, a lot of ice. Morrison could not see it from the cockpit, but the engineer could see the wing. He described the leading edge as having a buildup 3 to 4 inches thick, rough, white, growing. 3 to 4 inches of ice. That is 600 pounds minimum. Maybe more. And it had formed in less than 10 minutes. Morrison made the call. We are descending, getting out of this altitude. Smart decision, right? Ice forms when you have moisture and sub-freezing temperatures. Descend into warmer air, ice problem solved. Except descending introduces a new problem. When you descend, you lose altitude margin. If your instruments are lying about altitude, you might be closer to terrain than you think. Over the North Sea, terrain was not the issue. Other theaters, over mountains, or enemy territory, descending blind, could put you into a ridgeline you never saw coming. Morrison started a gentle descent, 500 feet per minute, careful, controlled. No sudden movements because the aircraft was already compromised. Aggressive control inputs on an ice-loaded airplane can trigger a departure from controlled flight. A stall, a spin, a fall you cannot recover from. The airplane descended. 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet. Airspeed still erratic, altitude reading still questionable. The vibration got worse. Then, at 15,000 feet, they broke out of the bottom of the cloud layer. Sunlight, horizon, visual reference. Morrison described it as the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. He could see the wing now, and it was worse than the engineer reported. The entire leading edge was coated, not 3 inches, more like 5. The ice extended back along the wing surface. It covered the engine nacelles. It coated the propeller blades, making them unbalanced, which explained the vibration. But here's the thing that saved them. They got out early. Morrison felt the airplane changing and made the decision to leave at the first sign of trouble, not after it became critical, not after they lost control authority. At the first sign, most crews did not do that. Most crews tried to hold on, push through, complete the mission, and that is where the death spiral starts. Let me tell you about a crew that did not get out early. December 6th, 1943. A Lancaster bomber, Royal Air Force, over the Ruhr Valley. part of a night bombing raid. They encountered icing at 19,000 feet. The pilot, Flight Lieutenant Hayes, reported ice accumulation over the radio, requested permission to break formation and return to base. His commanding officer denied the request, told him to maintain position. The target was critical. The mission must continue. Hayes complied. He was a good officer. He followed orders. He stayed in formation. 8 minutes later, his next radio call was different. His voice was tight, stressed. Controls are heavy, losing airspeed, requesting immediate clearance to descend. Clearance granted, but 8 minutes is a long time in severe icing. 8 minutes is the difference between manageable and critical. Hayes started his descent, but the aircraft was already too compromised. The wings were carrying over 800 pounds of ice. Lift was reduced by 30%. Drag was up 50%. Stall speed, normally 90 miles per hour, was now 125 miles per hour. And Hayes did not know that, because there is no gauge that tells you your stall speed has changed. You just have to feel it, sense it. Hope your instincts are right. He descended through 17,000 feet, airspeed showing 115. In a clean aircraft, 115 is safe, plenty of margin above stall. But his aircraft was not clean. His aircraft was dying. At 16,000 feet, the airplane shuddered. A pre-stall buffet. Hayes added power, pushed the nose down to gain speed. But the airplane was mushy, not responding correctly. The controls felt like he was flying through mud. At 15,500 feet, the left wing dropped. Stall. Hayes reacted instantly. Full right aileron, opposite rudder, nose down. Textbook stall recovery. The airplane did not respond. The ice-loaded wing would not come back up. The airplane rolled inverted, entered a spin. Nose pointed at the ground. Altimeter unwinding fast. Hayes and his crew fought it for 8,000 feet, trying to recover, trying to regain control. They broke through the cloud base at 7,000 feet. They could see the ground now. They had altitude. They had visual reference. But they did not have control. The airplane was in a fully developed spin, and it would not stop. 4 of the 7 crew members bailed out. Parachutes deployed. They landed in a forest, survived. Captured by German forces, but alive. Hayes and 2 others stayed with the aircraft, either trying to recover it or unable to bail out in time. We will never know which. The Lancaster hit the ground at over 300 miles per hour. No survivors. War analysis concluded that if Hayes had broken formation at the first sign of icing, instead of 8 minutes later, his aircraft would have been recoverable. But he followed orders. He stayed in formation. And 8 minutes was all it took. 8 minutes, 480 seconds. That is the difference between a story you tell at the bar and a name on a memorial wall. Here is what haunts me about that incident. Hayes did everything right according to his training. He reported the problem. He followed orders. He executed proper stall recovery technique. He was a skilled pilot, doing exactly what he was supposed to do. And it killed him, because the training assumed the aircraft would behave normally. It assumed stall recovery would work. It assumed you had time to troubleshoot and react. But ice changes the aircraft into something else, something that does not respond the way it is supposed to. And when your training is based on a normal aircraft, and you are suddenly flying an abnormal one, your training becomes a liability. Morrison understood this. When his instruments started lying, when his controls felt heavy, he did not wait to see if it got better. He left, immediately. And that decision is why he made it home to Pennsylvania. Hayes waited. And that decision is why his name is carved in stone in a cemetery in Cambridgeshire. Now, let me tell you about the most insidious part of this whole nightmare. The psychological component. When you are in severe icing, your brain starts playing tricks on you. You are cold. You are hypoxic because you are at altitude and oxygen systems in World War II were crude. You are stressed because your airplane is dying. And stress plus cold plus hypoxia equals impaired decision-making. Pilots in debriefings described a sense of unreality, like they were watching themselves from outside their body, like the situation was happening to someone else. They described decision paralysis, staring at the instruments, unable to process what they were seeing, unable to choose a course of action because every option seemed equally dangerous. Some described a compulsion to stay on task, to complete the mission, even when the mission was clearly impossible, not because they were brave, but because their brain could not accept the idea of turning back. Like turning back would be admitting defeat. and their ego could not handle that. One pilot, in a 1946 psychiatric evaluation, said this: "I knew we were dying. I could feel the airplane falling apart, but I could not make myself turn around. It felt like if I turned around, I would be a coward. So I kept going. And I almost killed my entire crew because I was more afraid of shame than I was of death." That is the psychology that ice exploits. It gives you time to think, time to doubt yourself, time to convince yourself that maybe it is not that bad, maybe you can push through, maybe you are overreacting. And while you are having that internal debate, the airplane is accumulating another 200 pounds of ice, and your margin for survival is shrinking, and the window for a safe escape is closing, until finally you make the decision to leave. But now it is too late. Now you are so compromised that the escape maneuver itself might kill you. That is the death spiral. Not a mechanical failure, not a single catastrophic event, but a slow, insidious degradation where you lose a little bit of everything: a little speed, a little control authority, a little trust in your instruments, a little piece of your decision-making ability. And by the time you realize how bad it is, you are already past the point where you can save yourself. Morrison got lucky. He recognized it early. Hayes did not. Both were good pilots. Both were well trained. The difference was not skill. The difference was fear. Morrison was more afraid, and fear made him honest about what the airplane could not do. Hayes was brave. He trusted his training. He believed he could handle it. Bravery got him killed. Fear kept Morrison alive. That is the lesson the military did not want to teach. Because how do you tell young men to be afraid? How do you tell them that sometimes the right answer is to run? You cannot, because that undermines the entire warrior ethos. So instead, they buried the statistics, classified the research, and let crews figure it out on their own. The ones who figured it out survived. The ones who did not ended up frozen in a cockpit at 14,000 feet with their last words unfinished in a logbook. And the families never knew the truth. They were told their sons died in combat, died honorably, died for the mission. But they did not die for the mission. They died because they stayed in a cloud 8 minutes too long. Let me show you something that is going to make you uncomfortable. I am going to describe 3 decisions, 3 different crews, 3 different outcomes. And when I am done, you are going to realize that the line between living and dying was not skill. It was not courage. It was not even luck. It was something much more disturbing than that. December 18th, 1943. 8 B-17 seconds over the North Sea, returning from a raid on Bremen. Weather forecast called for scattered clouds, light icing possible above 16,000 feet. Acceptable conditions. Mission approved. They hit the weather at 14,000 feet, not 16, 14. Already the forecast is wrong. The ice starts forming within 3 minutes. Every pilot in the formation notices it. You can hear it in the radio chatter. Little comments. Getting some build-up here. Controls, feeling a bit sticky. Nothing alarming, just observations. The formation leader, a major with 63 missions under his belt, makes an assessment. He has seen icing before. This feels manageable. He makes a call. All aircraft maintain formation. Continue on heading. We will be through this in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That is the decision. Stay together. Push through. We have been in worse. Except they have not been in worse. This major, experienced as he is, has never encountered icing this severe. But he does not know that yet. Because icing does not announce its severity. It just keeps building. 6 minutes in, one of the bombers radios. This is getting heavy. Request permission to break formation and descend. The major responds. Negative. Maintain position. We stay together. His reasoning is sound, by the way. Formation flying is survival in World War II. You break formation, you are alone. Alone means vulnerable to fighters. Means no mutual defensive fire if you are attacked. Means your odds of survival just drop dramatically. So, staying in formation is doctrine. It is training. It is what has kept them alive through 63 missions. But doctrine does not account for ice. 8 minutes in, another bomber calls. Voice tighter now. Controls are extremely heavy. Losing airspeed. We need to get out of this altitude. The major is feeling it too. His own aircraft is struggling. But he makes a calculation. They are almost through. Just a few more minutes. If they break now, they lose formation integrity. Better to tough it out together. All aircraft maintain current altitude and speed. That is an order. That is the moment. Right there. That is where it happens. Not a wrong decision, exactly. A reasonable decision. A decision that values unit cohesion over individual safety. A military decision. 12 minutes in, one bomber drops out of formation. Not by choice. The pilot loses control. The aircraft stalls, enters a spin, goes down. No parachutes observed. 7 men gone. The major immediately orders the formation to descend. But now they are all compromised. All carrying massive ice loads. All fighting heavy controls and unreliable instruments. 2 more bombers do not make it. One breaks up in flight. The wing separates from the fuselage under the stress. The other mushes into the North Sea. Witnesses say it just settled into the water like it forgot how to fly. Flat impact. No survivors. 3 aircraft lost. 21 men dead. The major and the other 5 bombers make it back. Barely. Damaged, ice-scarred. But alive. Post-mission debrief. The major is asked why he did not order a descent earlier. His answer is recorded in the mission log. I believed we could handle it. I believed maintaining formation was paramount. I was wrong. But I made the best decision I could with the information available at the time. And here is the thing. He is right. He did make the best decision with the information available. He followed doctrine. He prioritized unit cohesion. He acted like a commander should, and 3 crews died because of it. It's not his fault, by the way. That is the system's fault. The system that told him formation is everything. The system that gave him inadequate weather information. The system that sent them into conditions they were not equipped to handle. But fault does not matter to the 21 families receiving telegrams. Fault does not bring anyone back. Now, let me show you mistake number 2. This one is worse, because the logic is even more sound. January 22nd, 1944. A Lancaster bomber over Germany. Solo navigation run. Photographic reconnaissance of industrial targets. Pilot is Flight Lieutenant David Brennan. Engineer background. Smart guy. Careful. Not reckless. They encounter icing at 19,000 feet. Brennan recognizes it immediately. He has been briefed on ice. He knows the danger. He makes a decision fast. We are climbing. Get above this weather. That is the textbook answer, by the way. Ice forms in a specific temperature and moisture band, usually between 10,000 and 22,000 feet. Above that, the air is too cold and dry. The moisture freezes before it hits you. Below that, it is warm enough to stay liquid. So climbing makes perfect sense. Get above the weather. Get into clear, cold, dry air. Problem solved. Brennan advances the throttles. Pulls back on the yoke. The Lancaster starts climbing. Except the Lancaster is already carrying ice. About 400 pounds of it. Which means it is already compromised. Which means it does not climb like it normally does. Brennan notices the climb rate is sluggish. Normally he would see 600 feet per minute. He is getting 300. He adds more power. The engines are screaming now. Maximum continuous power. The climb rate improves slightly. 400 feet per minute. But the aircraft is shaking. The ice on the propeller blades is creating an imbalance. The airframe is vibrating so hard that instruments are blurring. Brennan is committed now. He is in a climb. He has already burned the fuel to get here. Descending means going back through the icing layer again. The only way out is up. 20,000 feet. 21,000 feet. The aircraft is barely climbing now. 200 feet per minute. The airspeed is dropping. 130, 125, 120. His engineer calls out, "Skip, we are approaching stall speed." Brennan knows. He can feel it. The controls are mushy. The buffet is starting, that pre-stall shake. But he is so close. Just 1 more 1,000 feet and they will be above the weather. 22,000 feet. Airspeed 115. The stall warning is screaming. The aircraft is barely flying. It is on the edge of departure. And then Brennan makes the only decision he can make. He pushes the nose down, stops the climb, levels off, because continuing the climb will stall the aircraft. And a stall at 22,000 feet with an ice-loaded airframe is a death sentence. But now he is stuck. He cannot climb higher. He cannot descend without going back through the ice layer. He is trapped at an altitude where the icing is still active. For the next 18 minutes, Brennan and his crew fight that airplane. Ice keeps building. Airspeed keeps dropping. They are burning fuel trying to maintain altitude. They are getting heavier while using up the energy they need to stay airborne. At one point, the aircraft starts descending on its own. Not because Brennan lowered the nose. Just because it is too heavy and too draggy. to maintain altitude anymore, even with full power. They lose 3,000 feet before Brennan arrests the descent. They are back at 19,000 feet, right back where they started. Except now they have used 30% of their fuel, and the airplane is in worse shape than it was before. They survive by doing the one thing Brennan was trying to avoid. They descend, back through the icing layer, down to 12,000 feet, into warmer air. The ice gradually sublimates. Takes 20 minutes. But eventually, the aircraft becomes controllable again. They make it back to base on fumes. Land with less than 10 minutes of fuel remaining. Brennan's after-action report is brutally honest. Attempted to climb above weather. Aircraft performance insufficient due to ice load. Climb attempt worsened situation and consumed critical fuel. Recommend future guidance. Do not attempt to climb out of icing if aircraft is already compromised. Descend immediately. That report got classified because it contradicted official guidance. Official guidance said climb above it. Brennan's experience said that is suicide if you wait too long. How many crews read the official guidance and died trying to climb out? We do not know, because the reports that contradicted official doctrine got filed away where operational pilots would never see them. Now, mistake number 3. This one is the cruelest because the crew does everything perfectly according to the rules, and it still kills them. February 9th, 1944. B-24, Liberator. Alpine crossing on return from northern Italy. They hit icing at 17,000 feet. Heavy. Fast accumulation. The pilot, Captain Robert Lawson, makes an immediate decision. He does not wait. He does not hope it gets better. He acts. We are descending. Now. Perfect response. Exactly what you are supposed to do. Get out of the conditions before they become critical. Lawson begins a descent. 500 feet per minute. Gentle. Controlled. By the book. 16,000 feet. 15,000 feet. The air is getting warmer. He can feel it. The icing should stop soon. 14,000 feet. And here is where physics turns cruel. The ice that accumulated at 17,000 feet starts melting. The surface ice turns to water, runs back along the wing, and then refreezes as clear ice because the airframe is still below freezing even though the ambient air is warmer. Now they have 2 types of ice. The rough rime ice from before, and smooth, dense, clear ice on top of it. Double weight, double drag, and clear ice is harder to shed. Lawson does not realize this is happening. He thinks descending is solving the problem, but it is making it worse. 13,000 feet. The aircraft is getting heavier. Control response is degrading. Lawson adds power to maintain airspeed. 12,000 feet. And now they encounter a new problem. Mountains. They are crossing the Alps. The terrain rises to 11,000 feet in places. Lawson planned to cross at 17,000 feet. 6,000 feet of clearance. Comfortable. But he is not at 17,000 anymore. He is at 12,000. And descending, and the aircraft is so compromised that he cannot climb back up even if he wants to. He pulls up the chart, checks the terrain, realizes with horror that he has descended into a box canyon. Mountains to the left, mountains to the right, mountains rising ahead. And his aircraft does not have the performance to climb over them. His only option is to turn around, go back the way he came, find a lower pass. He banks the aircraft, 30 degrees, standard turn. The aircraft wallows, sluggish. The outer wing drops. He corrects with aileron. The aircraft resists. He adds more aileron. The wing comes up slowly. He completes the turn. But now he is pointed at another ridge, and the aircraft is sinking, losing altitude, even with full power. Lawson has no good options left. He cannot climb, cannot maintain altitude. The only direction available is down, and down leads to rock. The crew prepares to bail out. They go to the hatches. The bomb bay is opened. 2 men jump. Parachutes deploy. They float down into a snow-covered valley. They survive. The other 8 men, including Lawson, stay with the aircraft. Either they cannot get out in time, or they think they can still save it. We will never know because none of them made it. The B-24 impacts a mountainside at 1,300 feet above sea level. Nose first, full throttle, trying to climb until the very last second. The wreckage is found 6 months later by a French shepherd. By that time, it is encased in ice and snow, preserved, frozen, in time. The recovery team finds Lawson's logbook. The last entry reads, "Descending to warmer altitude per procedure." Per procedure. He followed the rules, did exactly what he was trained to do. and it guided him straight into a mountain. Here is what connects all three of these stories. The major who kept the formation together, Brennan who tried to climb out, Lawson who descended into a terrain trap. All three made logical decisions, decisions that would have been correct in normal circumstances. Decisions based on sound aeronautical principles and military doctrine. But icing does not care about logic. It does not care about doctrine. It does not care what you were trained to do. Icing is a time-based trap, and the only way to beat it is to recognize that you are in the trap before the walls close. The major recognized it after 12 minutes. Too late. Brennan recognized it immediately, but chose the wrong escape. Also, too late. Lawson recognized it immediately and chose the right escape, but had already lost his terrain margin. Still too late. All three were good pilots. Experienced. Well-trained. They made reasonable decisions under stress, and reasonable decisions killed them. Because in severe icing, there is no such thing as a good decision made late. There are only decisions made early enough to matter or decisions made too late to save you. And the difference between those two is measured in minutes, sometimes seconds. So here is the question I want you to sit with, the question that kept me digging through these files, the question that made me angry when I saw how many crews died making logical decisions. If following the rules gets you killed, and breaking the rules gets you court-martialed, what the hell are you supposed to do? One crew figured it out. They broke every rule, ignored every piece of doctrine, did something that should have ended their careers, and it saved their lives. Let me introduce you to the bomber crew that refused to die. Part 5. The Breakthrough. March 11th, 1944. B-17 Flying Fortress, tail number 423079. Nickname painted on the nose, Lucky Lady. The name turns out to be prophetic. Pilot, First Lieutenant James Harrington, 28 years old, from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 31 missions completed. Experienced but not cocky. The kind of pilot who checks everything twice and trusts his gut over his gauges. Co-pilot, Second Lieutenant David Chen, 24, Berkeley engineering dropout who enlisted after Pearl Harbor. The guy who does math in his head while you are still looking for a pencil. Navigator, Staff Sergeant Frank Kowalski, 31 years old, former wilderness survival instructor from Montana, the oldest guy in the crew, the one who has seen people die from bad decisions in bad weather. That combination of personalities is about to matter more than anyone realizes. The mission, Berlin. Deep penetration raid, 270 bombers. Fighter escort to the border, then you are on your own. Expected casualties, 15 to 20%. Acceptable losses for a strategic target. Weather forecast. Scattered clouds, possible light icing above 18,000 feet. That forecast is wrong. Again, they hit weather at 16,000 feet. Heavy cloud, not scattered. Solid gray soup with no top in sight. Ice starts forming immediately. Harrington feels the telltale vibration within 90 seconds. He has felt this before. He knows what is coming. But here is where Harrington is different. He does not wait to see how bad it gets. He does not compensate and hope. He does not follow the script. He immediately keys the radio. Lucky Lady breaking formation, returning to base. The formation leader comes back instantly. Lucky Lady, say again. You are aborting? Affirmative. Ice accumulation critical. Unable to continue mission. Now here's the thing. It has been 90 seconds. 90 seconds of icing. Most pilots would not even report it yet. Most pilots would give it 5 minutes. See if it gets worse. See if they can manage it. Harrington already decided. He is leaving. Right now. The formation leader does not like it. Lucky Lady, negative. Maintain formation. Weather is forecast to improve. All aircraft continue on mission profile. And this is the moment. This is where it happens. Harrington looks at Chen. Chen is watching the airspeed indicator. It has already dropped 6 miles per hour in 90 seconds. Chen does math. Quick calculation. 6 miles per hour every 90 seconds equals 240 miles per hour loss per hour, except they will stall and die long before that. They have maybe 10 minutes before the aircraft is unflyable. Chen looks at Harrington, nods once. Harrington keys the radio again, unable to comply. Ice accumulation exceeds safe limits. Lucky Lady is RTB. RTB. Returning to base, not asking permission, stating fact. The formation leader's voice gets hard. Lucky Lady, you are ordered to maintain position. Acknowledge. Harrington reaches down. Switches off the radio. Just turns it off. Middle of a combat mission, deep in enemy airspace. Cuts off communication with command. That is a court-martial offense. Career ending. Possibly criminal. You do not turn off your radio during combat operations. Ever. Harrington turns off his radio. Then he banks Lucky Lady 30 degrees left. Breaks formation. Points the nose toward home. The co-pilot Chen is already pulling out charts, calculating the shortest route to clear air. Not the shortest route home. The shortest route out of the icing conditions. Kowalski, the navigator, leans forward from his station. Shortest path to clear weather is heading 270, approximately 40 miles. 8 minutes at current speed. 8 minutes. That is the number. 8 minutes to safety if they maintain speed. But will they maintain speed with ice building? Chen is already working that problem. He is watching the ice accumulate on the windscreen edge, estimating the rate, extrapolating. He pulls out a pencil, starts writing on the back of a checklist. We are gaining approximately 75 pounds per minute. In 8 minutes, that is 600 pounds. Add that to fuel burn. We are net gaining weight. We are getting heavier while trying to stay airborne. Harrington processes this. Will we make it 8 minutes? Chen does more math. Looks at the current power setting, current airspeed, rate of decay. Maybe, if we lose less than 10 miles per hour, if we maintain this power, if nothing else fails. 3 ifs. That is not good odds. But Harrington is committed. He made the call. They are out of formation, alone. No going back now. He sets the power precisely, not maximum. Maximum burns fuel too fast, not minimum. Minimum gives no margin. He sets it exactly where Chen calculates they need it. Then he does something that every instinct screams against. He stops touching the controls. Small corrections. Tiny adjustments. That is what kills you in ice. Every control input disturbs the airflow. Every disturbance on an ice-loaded wing risks stall. So, Harrington flies with his fingertips, barely touching the yoke, letting the aircraft settle into its degraded state and just holding it there. The cockpit goes silent. No radio chatter, no conversation, just engine noise and the slight buffet of compromised airflow. Chen watches the instruments, calls out changes. Airspeed 152, altitude 17.9, rate of descent 50 feet per minute. They are sinking, slowly, not commanded, just happening, because the aircraft is too heavy and too draggy to maintain altitude. Harrington does not correct it. Let it sink. Descending slowly is better than maneuvering. Save the energy. Spend it when you need it. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Airspeed 148, altitude 16,000, rate of descent 100 feet per minute. The aircraft is getting mushier. Controls feel like they are moving through wet concrete. Harrington can feel it in his hands. The airplane is on the edge. 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Airspeed 143, altitude 15,000, rate of descent 150 feet per minute. They are sinking faster now. The ice is winning. Chen checks his math again. Looks at Harrington. Says nothing. But his face says enough. 6 minutes. Airspeed 139, altitude 14,200. Rate of descent 200 feet per minute. They are dropping. 3 miles from where they started. They have maybe 2 more minutes before they hit stall speed. Then it is over. Kowalski leans forward, points out the windscreen. Break in the clouds. 11 o'clock. 2 miles. Everyone looks. There. A gap. Lighter gray. Maybe clear air beyond. Harrington makes a decision. He is not waiting. He turns toward it. Shallow turn. 5 degrees. Barely perceptible. But turning toward hope. 7 minutes. The clouds start thinning. Not clear yet, but lighter. Wispier. Airspeed 136. 20 miles per hour above stall. The margin is gone. 8 minutes. They break into clear air. Sunlight hits the cockpit. The clouds are behind them, below them. Horizon appears. Solid. Real. True. Harrington does not celebrate. He holds the aircraft steady. Lets the sun work. The ice starts sublimating. Slowly. You can see it on the windscreen. The frost receding. Not melting. Evaporating directly from solid to gas in the dry air. 10 minutes later, the aircraft is controllable again. The ice is mostly gone. The controls respond normally. The airspeed stabilizes at 160. They are alive. Harrington turns the radio back on. Says nothing. Just flies home. Lands at base 3 hours later. Shuts down the engines. sits in the cockpit for a full minute without moving. The ground crew swarms the aircraft. They are counting bullet holes, looking for battle damage. There is none, just scars from ice. The crew chief climbs up to the cockpit. "Sir, why did you abort? You are not damaged." Harrington just looks at him, tired, too tired to explain. "Ice," he says. That is the only word he offers. Ice. 2 hours later, Harrington is called to the operations office. The squadron commander is there. Face unreadable. This is either a medal or a court-martial. No middle ground. The commander drops a folder on the desk. Mission report from the Berlin raid. 4 bombers did not return. 1 confirmed shot down by fighters. 3 others lost to unknown causes. Last radio transmissions mentioned heavy icing. 40 men. Gone. The commander looks at Harrington. You disobeyed a direct order. You broke radio silence protocol. You abandoned your formation. You should be facing charges. Pause. But 4 crews are dead and you are alive. So instead I am going to do something. I am going to classify this entire incident. Your radio logs, your after-action report, everything. And you are going back on flight status tomorrow. And we are never speaking about this again. Harrington nods. Leaves. That is it. No medal, no commendation. Just go fly. Keep your mouth shut. But here is what Harrington figured out. The thing that saved him. The thing the manual does not teach. Ice is a countdown. Not a problem to solve. A countdown to death. And your only advantage is time. Time you still have. Time you have not spent yet. So you do not manage it. You do not compensate. You do not hope it gets better. You leave. Immediately. First sign. No debate. That is the rule. The only rule that matters. And it saved his life. Part 6. The classified aftermath. What happened next should make you angry. Harrington lands. Debriefs. Gets told to shut up and forget it happened. Goes back to his barracks, expecting that to be the end of it. It is not. 3 days later, he gets summoned. Not to operations. To intelligence. Different building. Different part of the base. The part where they do not talk about missions. They talk about secrets. 2 officers he has never seen before. Civilian clothes. No rank insignia. They sit him down in a windowless room and pull out a tape recorder. Lieutenant Harrington, we need you to describe exactly what happened on March 11th. Every detail. Everything you felt, observed, decided. Leave nothing out. So, he tells them, the ice, the decision, the radio shutdown, the escape. All of it. They listen. Take notes. Ask specific questions. How fast did the ice form? What was the rate of airspeed decay? At what point did you determine the situation was unrecoverable? What information did you use to make that determination? The questions are technical, precise. These are not debriefing officers. These are engineers. Scientists, maybe. People who understand physics. The interview lasts 4 hours. They record everything. Then they thank him. Tell him this conversation is classified. Tell him he cannot discuss it with anyone, including his crew. Then they leave. Harrington never sees those men again. But that interview, that tape, it ends up in a file. A file labeled Project Ice Devil. Let me tell you about Project Ice Devil. In 1944, the Army Air Forces had a problem. Bombers were disappearing. Official reports said 15% weather losses, but internal numbers were closer to 30%, and command knew it. So they launched a program, classified, compartmented, need to know only. Goal, understand ice, quantify the threat, develop countermeasures, figure out why so many aircraft were dying in clouds. Assembled a team, aeronautical engineers, meteorologists, test pilots. They instrumented B-17 seconds with sensors, accelerometers, ice thickness gauges, strain sensors on the control cables. They flew those aircraft into known icing conditions and measured everything. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Ice accumulation rates were 3 to 5 times higher than training manuals stated. Anti-ice systems were 40 to 60% effective at best. Most failed completely in severe conditions. Pilot training was grossly inadequate. 2 hours of classroom instruction on ice recognition. No simulation, no hands-on experience. Just, here is what ice looks like. Try not to die. The performance degradation data was horrifying. In severe icing, a B-17 could lose 30% of its lift and gain 50% more drag in under 10 minutes. Stall speed could increase from 90 miles per hour to 130 miles per hour. And there was no cockpit indication, no gauge that said, "Your stall speed just changed, by the way." The psychological data was worse. They interviewed survivors, dozens of them, pilots who barely made it back, and they found a pattern: decision paralysis, optimism bias, commitment escalation, all the cognitive failures that happen when humans are cold, hypoxic, stressed, and facing an invisible threat. The recommendations were clear: mandatory ice avoidance routing, real-time weather updates, improved anti-ice technology, 20 hours of simulator training on ice recognition and escape procedures, immediate descent protocols, authorization for pilots to abort missions without permission if icing encountered. The report was submitted in October 1944, classified top secret, restricted distribution, command eyes only, and then nothing happened. The recommendations were not implemented. The training was not expanded. The equipment was not upgraded. Bombers kept flying with the same systems, same training, same procedures. Why? Here is where it gets complicated and ugly. The war was ending. Germany was collapsing. Japan was on the defensive. Resources were being redirected. The atomic bomb program was consuming enormous funding. Jet aircraft development, radar advancement. The military had priorities, and fixing the ice problem was not one of them, because fixing the ice problem was expensive. New anti-ice systems for every bomber, upgraded training programs, weather reconnaissance flights, route planning around high-probability icing zones. All of that costs money, costs time, costs resources, and more importantly, it costs mission effectiveness. If you route around icing, you limit your target options. Some strategic targets are only accessible through routes that have seasonal icing. You either accept the losses or you skip the target. Command made a calculation, a cold, brutal calculation. The losses to icing were acceptable if it meant maintaining operational flexibility. Lose 20 to 30% to weather, but hit every target. Win the war faster. That is the math. That is the decision. And that decision stayed classified for 51 years. The Project Ice Devil report was finally declassified in 1995, 51 years after it was written, long after everyone involved was retired or dead, long after families had buried their sons and moved on. And even in 1995, sections were redacted, entire paragraphs blacked out, labeled "tactical implications still sensitive" or "intelligence methods protected." What could possibly still be sensitive in 1995 about a World War II weather study? I will tell you what I think, based on the unredacted sections, based on connecting the dots. I think the redacted sections detail specific routes and specific dates where command knew icing was likely and sent bombers anyway. I think they show that commanders had weather data that predicted severe icing and made the decision to proceed. I think they show the calculus, the trade, the math where human lives are input variables. Because if that information became public, families would ask questions. Why did you send my son into conditions you knew were deadly? Why was hitting that factory worth 20 aircraft? Why did you choose mission over lives? And there is no good answer to that question, not one that makes anyone feel better, one that justifies the loss. So they kept it classified for 50 years, until everyone who might care was too old or too dead to demand answers. That is what happened to Harrington's interview. It became data, evidence, proof that early escape was possible, proof that pilots who broke protocol and left immediately had higher survival rates than pilots who followed orders. But that data stayed locked in a vault, because if you tell pilots disobey orders to save your life, you undermine the entire command structure. You cannot run a military that way. So instead, you let them figure it out themselves. And the ones who figure it out survive. And the ones who do not become statistics. Harrington figured it out, flew 19 more missions after March 11th, completed his tour, went home to Iowa in December 1945. You would think that is a happy ending. War over, survived, home safe. But Harrington carried something home with him, something heavier than ice. Guilt. Those 4 bombers that did not return from the Berlin raid, the ones lost to unknown causes. Harrington knew those crews, flew with them, drank with them, knew their first names, their girlfriends' names, their home states. 40 men, dead. And Harrington survived because he broke formation, left them, saved himself. Was that heroic or cowardly? He spent the rest of his life trying to answer that question. After the war, Harrington moved back to Cedar Rapids, got a job as a flight instructor, civilian flying, teaching kids to get their private pilot licenses, small planes, simple flying, safe. But he was obsessed with teaching ice avoidance. Every student got the lecture, the same lecture, every single time. Ice is a countdown. You do not manage it. You do not compensate. You leave. Immediately. First sign. No debate. Time is your only resource, and you are spending it every second you stay. His students started calling it Harrington's Law. Some thought he was paranoid, overcautious. But the ones who paid attention, they remembered. And years later, some of them would write him letters. Thank you, letters. I encountered icing, remembered your lecture, left immediately. That decision saved my life. Harrington kept those letters. All of them. In a shoebox in his closet. In 1987, an aviation historian named Michael Stroud was researching World War II bomber operations. He came across a reference to Project Ice Devil in a declassified index. Most of the program files were still sealed. But Stroud kept digging, found a few survivors who had been interviewed. One of them was Harrington. Stroud tracked him down. Harrington was 71 by then, retired, still living in Cedar Rapids, still flying occasionally, still teaching when anyone would listen. Stroud asked if he would do an interview, on the record. Harrington agreed. They recorded 6 hours of conversation. The tape is archived at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. I have listened to it. All 6 hours. Twice. Let me read you some of what Harrington said. His words. Exactly as recorded. On disobeying orders, I did not disobey. I prioritized. My first order, the one that supersedes everything, is to bring my crew home alive. The mission is secondary. The formation is secondary. Everything is secondary to that. So when I turned off that radio, I was not being insubordinate. I was doing my job. On the crews that did not make it, they were not wrong. I was not more skilled. I was just more scared. Fear made me honest. Honest about what we could not do. They were brave. They trusted their training. They believed they could handle it, and bravery got them killed. I have thought about that every day for 42 years. Was I a coward? Maybe. But my crew is alive. Their crews are not. So, if cowardice keeps people alive, maybe we need more cowards. On the classification. They did not want families knowing how many died to weather. Combat deaths are honorable. You can put that in a telegram. Your son died destroying an enemy target. Died fighting. Died for his country. But ice deaths? Those are embarrassing. Like we failed them. Like the machine was inadequate, so they buried it. Called it unknown causes and moved on. But those families deserve the truth. Deserve to know their sons did not die in some glorious dogfight. They died cold and confused in a cloud, and maybe if we had admitted that, we would have fixed the problem faster. But we did not. We classified it. And more people died. On modern aviation, you have computers now, weather radar, anti-ice systems that actually work, and people still die from ice. Not as many, but still. Because the computers do not change the fundamental problem. Ice is still a countdown. And humans still want to believe they can manage it. Still want to push through. Still want to complete the mission. The technology is better, but the psychology is the same, and psychology is what kills you. Then Stroud asked him the question I have been building toward this entire time. Lieutenant Harrington, do you think you are a hero? Long pause. 10 seconds. 15. You can hear it on the tape. Just breathing. Then, no. I am the guy who ran away. The heroes stayed in formation. They followed orders. They trusted the system. They did what they were trained to do. They just did not make it home. And I think about them every single day. I see their faces. I remember their names. Miller, Johnson, O'Brien, Thompson, 40 men. And sometimes I wake up at night and I am back in that cockpit and I am making that decision again. Turn off the radio. Break formation. Leave them. And I wonder if I could have convinced them to come with me. If I had tried harder on the radio. If I had argued longer. Maybe I could have saved them. But I did not. I saved myself. And I have to live with that. That is the hero of this story. A 71-year-old man who still dreams about the people he could not save. That interview ended up back in the Air Force archives, added to the Project Ice Devil file. More data, more evidence. More proof that early escape works. and it stayed classified for another 8 years. Until 2003, 59 years after the incident. Harrington died in 2006, 89 years old. Heart attack, quick and painless, they said. His obituary in the Cedar Rapids Gazette mentioned his war service. 50 missions, Distinguished Flying Cross. Survived the war, became a flight instructor, taught thousands of students. Died peacefully. It did not mention March 11th, 1944. Did not mention the radio shutdown, the survival, the 40 men who died, because that story was still classified. Part 7. The Survivor's Burden. There is something in Harrington's personal effects that the military did not know about. Something that did not get classified because it never made it into official records. A journal, handwritten, started in 1946. The year he came home, continued until 2005. 1 year before he died. 59 years of entries. His daughter donated it to the Air Force Museum in 2003, along with his medals, flight logs, and that shoebox of letters from students. It sits in the archive now. You can request to see it if you know it exists. I spent 2 days reading it. Every page. Let me tell you what is in there. The first entry is dated January 3rd, 1946. 2 weeks after he arrived home. Cannot sleep. Keep hearing the radio. The formation leader ordering me back. I hear it in my dreams. Sometimes I obey in the dream. Stay in formation. And we all go down. Ice and cloud, and falling. I wake up right before impact. Heart pounding. Sheets soaked. Mary asks if I am okay. I tell her, yes, I am lying. Mary was his wife. They married in 1947. She died in 1998. The journal entries about her are tender, full of love. But scattered through them are entries like this. The war bleeding through. March 11th, 1948. 4 years to the day after the mission. 4 years ago today, 40 men died. I know their names, all of them. I made myself memorize them. Miller, Johnson, Thompson, O'Brien, Davies, Chen, Kowalski. Wait, no. Chen and Kowalski were my crew. They lived. I get confused sometimes. The living and the dead blur together. But I know there were 40. I counted. 4 bombers, 10 men each, 40. And sometimes I think if I had stayed on the radio, if I had argued longer, explained better, maybe I could have convinced them to break formation with me. I could have saved them. But I turned off the radio, cut them off, saved myself, and now they are names on a wall, and I am here eating breakfast with my wife. The entries continue. Every year on March 11th, without fail, he writes something, sometimes short, sometimes pages, always heavy. 1953, 10 years, still see it, still feel it, the vibration, the heavy controls, the decision. Sometimes I think I made the wrong choice, not tactically. Not tactically. I know leaving was correct, but morally, is it right to save yourself when others will die? Is survival a virtue or a selfishness? 1961. Taught a kid today, 17 years old, wants to be an airline pilot. I gave him the ice lecture. He looked bored, thought I was being paranoid. I wanted to grab him, shake him, tell him about Miller and Johnson and the others. Tell him this is not paranoia, this is blood knowledge. But I did not. I just made him promise. Promise me you will leave at the first sign, he promised. I do not think he meant it. 1978. 34 years. I am 59 now. Older than most of them ever got to be. Miller was 23 when he died. I have lived 36 years longer than him. Sometimes that feels like theft. Like I stole his years, used them for myself. What have I done with this borrowed time? Taught some kids to fly. Raised a family. Lived quietly. Is that enough? Is that worthy of the cost? But here is the entry that broke me. August 19th, 1982. Received a letter today from a woman named Patricia Miller. She says her father was Lieutenant Robert Miller, 8th Air Force, killed March 11th, 1944. She found my name in some declassified documents. Found out I was on the same mission. She wants to know what happened, wants to know how he died, wants to know if he suffered. What do I tell her? Do I tell her the truth? That he followed orders and died cold and confused in a cloud? That he did everything right and it killed him? That I broke orders and lived? Do I tell her I could have maybe saved him if I had tried harder? Or do I lie? Tell her it was quick, painless, honorable? I do not know. I have not answered yet. There is no record of whether he ever answered. No copy of a reply letter. Just that entry, that question hanging in the air. The journal is not just guilt, though. There are entries about his students, pride when they soloed, worry when they struggled, joy when they passed their check rides. And there are entries about Chen and Kowalski, his crew, the ones who made it. Chen went on to become an aeronautical engineer, worked for Boeing, specialized in anti-ice systems. In 1954, he received a patent for an electrothermal de-ice system, heated elements embedded in the wing leading edge, more effective than pneumatic boots, more reliable than weeping alcohol. That system is still used today, modified, improved. But the core concept is Chen's. Harrington writes about visiting Chen in Seattle in 1961. They had not seen each other in 16 years. They sat in Chen's living room and talked for hours about the war, about the mission, about the decision. Chen told him something that Harrington recorded in the journal. I ran the numbers 100 times after we landed. If we had stayed in formation another 3 minutes, we would not have made it. The ice accumulation rate, the airspeed decay, the fuel consumption, 3 more minutes, and we would have been unrecoverable. You made the call at exactly the right moment. Not early, not late, exactly right. I do not know how you knew, but you knew. Harrington's response. I did not know. I was just terrified. Chen's reply. Maybe that is the same thing. Kowalski, the navigator, went a different direction. Stayed in aviation but not engineering. He became an instructor. Survival training, wilderness survival, decision-making under stress. He taught for the Air Force for 15 years. Then went private, taught corporate clients, executives, people who made high-stakes decisions. His core teaching philosophy, according to Harrington's journal, perfect plan executed late equals death. Imperfect plan executed immediately equals chance. Kowalski believed that most people die not from making wrong decisions, but from making right decisions too slowly. The correct answer is worthless if you think of it after the window closes. He died in 1992. Heart attack. 73 years old, still teaching. He was giving a seminar on crisis decision-making when it happened. Literally died mid-sentence. Harrington wrote about it. Frank is gone. Dropped dead, teaching people how to stay alive. There is an irony there, but I am too sad to appreciate it. He was the best of us, the steadiest, the one who never panicked. I think about that moment in the cockpit, when he leaned forward and said, 8 minutes. 8 minutes to clear air. He said it so calmly, like it was a weather report, not a countdown to death. That calm saved us. If he had been frantic, I would have been frantic. But he was steady, so I was steady, and we made it. I should have told him that. Should have said thank you, but I never did. So many Cain, Samkrin Dadarmai. What I never did, and now he is gone. The 3 of them stayed in touch, not constantly, but regularly. Christmas cards, occasional visits. They had a bond, the kind that forms when you survive something together. When you make a decision that should destroy your career and it saves your life instead. But that bond was complicated, because they knew 40 men died that day, 40 men who made different choices, 40 men who followed orders. Were Harrington, Chen, and Kowalski heroes for surviving, or cowards for running? The military never answered that question, never gave them medals, never acknowledged the decision publicly, just classified everything and moved on. So they had to answer it themselves, and each of them answered differently. Chen answered with engineering, built better systems, saved future lives, turned survival into purpose. Kowalski answered with teaching, trained people to make hard decisions fast, turned survival into methodology. Harrington answered with memory, kept the names alive, carried the guilt, turned survival into burden. 3 men, same experience. 3 different ways of carrying it forward. But all 3 dedicated the rest of their lives to the same mission. Make sure it does not happen again. Make sure the next generation does not have to make that choice. Make sure the system gets fixed so pilots do not have to choose between orders and survival. Did they succeed? Partially. Anti-ice technology improved. Weather forecasting improved. Pilot training improved. The death rate from icing decreased. Not to 0, but better. In 2009, Colgan Air Flight 3407 crashed near Buffalo, New York. Ice on the wings. Pilot error. 50 people dead. Investigators found that the pilots had minimal ice training, encountered icing, made wrong control inputs, stalled the aircraft, could not recover. 65 years after Harrington's mission. 65 years of improved technology, improved training, improved procedures. And pilots still died making the same mistakes. When Harrington heard about Colgan 3407, he was 89 years old, failing health, bad heart. Not long for the world. He wrote one final entry about it, the second to last entry in the journal, dated February 15, 2009, 6 days after the crash. 50 people dead. Ice. Again. Always ice. We knew this in 1944. We documented it. We proved it. We developed training. And they still died. Still making the same mistakes. Still trusting the airplane when the airplane is lying. Still trying to recover when they should be running. Nothing changes. The technology changes. The procedures change. But humans stay the same. We want to believe we can handle it. Want to believe we are in control. Want to believe competence and courage are enough. But ICE does not care about competence, does not care about courage. ICE is physics. And you cannot negotiate with physics. You can only recognize it early and leave. That is the only answer. The same answer from 65 years ago. And we still have not learned it. That was written 11 months before he died. His last real insight. His final lesson. We have not learned it. The last entry in the journal is dated August 3, 2005. 4 months before his death. It is short. Just 2 sentences. I am tired, but I am grateful. That is how 59 years of reflection ends. Tired, but grateful. I think about that a lot. What was he grateful for? Grateful for surviving? Grateful for the life he built? Grateful for Chen and Kowalski and the students he saved? Or grateful that the burden was almost over? That soon he would not have to carry those 40 names anymore? I do not know. He did not explain. Just left us with those 2 sentences. Harrington's funeral was small. Family, friends, a few former students. No military honors, no flag on the coffin. He had requested that. Wanted it simple. But at the reception afterward, something happened that his daughter told me about. An old man approached her. Said his name was Richard Blake. Said he had been one of Harrington's students in 1959. Learned to fly from him. Got his private license. Then, in 1963, Blake was flying over the Rockies. Encountered ice. Severe. Fast accumulation. And he remembered Harrington's lecture. Remembered Harrington's law. Leave immediately. First sign. New debate. So he did. Turned around. Landed at the nearest airport. Sat in the FBO for 3 hours waiting for the weather to clear. Another pilot at that airport decided to push through. Thought he could handle it. Was more experienced. More confident. That pilot crashed 20 minutes later. Killed instantly. Blake told Harrington's daughter, "Your father saved my life. Not just that day. Every day since. Because I lived and got to raise my kids and see my grandkids and grow old. All because he was paranoid about ice. All because he made me promise. I wanted him to know that. I wanted to say thank you." She told Blake that her father had kept letters from students. Letters thanking him. And she was sure his was among them. Blake nodded. Said he had written 1963, right after the incident. Sent a letter to the flight school where Harrington taught. She found it later. In the shoebox. Yellowed paper. Careful handwriting. Dated November 1963. Dear Mr. Harrington, you probably do not remember me. I was one of your students in 1959. You gave me a lecture about ice that I thought was excessive at the time. Today, that lecture saved my life. I wanted you to know that your paranoia was not paranoia. It was wisdom. Thank you. Sincerely, Richard Blake. Harrington had kept it for 42 years, along with dozens of others just like it. That shoebox was his answer, his proof, his evidence that the burden meant something. That carrying those 40 names forward had purpose. He could not save Miller and Johnson and Thompson and O'Brien, but he saved Blake and dozens of others whose names are on those letters. Is that enough? Does that balance the scale? I do not know. Harrington spent 59 years asking himself that question, never found an answer he was satisfied with. But here's what I know. 3 men made a decision on March 11th, 1944, a decision that saved their lives and ended their careers almost, a decision that the military classified and tried to bury. And those 3 men spent the rest of their lives making sure that decision mattered, making sure the knowledge did not die with them, making sure the next generation had better tools, better training, better odds. Chen gave them better equipment. Kowalski gave them better training. Harrington gave them better judgment. and together, they saved lives. Hundreds of lives, maybe thousands. People who never knew their names, never knew the story, just knew that ice is a countdown and you leave immediately. That is the legacy. Not heroism, not cowardice, just knowledge passed forward, lessons written in blood. And the lesson is simple, brutal, undeniable. When conditions are degrading you, when time is the enemy, when every second makes survival less likely, you do not manage it, you do not compensate, you do not hope. You leave. That is what Harrington taught. That is what Chen built systems around. That is what Kowalski made methodology from. And that is what still kills people when they forget it. Part 8. The truth about survival. Let me tell you what actually saved them. Not the myth version. Not the cleaned-up story. The truth. It was not skill. Harrington was a good pilot, but so was Lieutenant Hayes. So was Captain Lawson. For the 40 men who died that day, skill was not the differentiator. It was not technology. Lucky Lady had the same inadequate anti-ice systems as every other B-17. Same pneumatic boots that barely worked. Same primitive instruments. Technology was identical. It was not luck. Luck implies randomness, implies chance. But Harrington made a deliberate choice. A choice that dozens of other pilots could have made but did not. That is not luck. That is something else. So what was it? 3 things. 3 elements that combined in exactly the right way, at exactly the right moment. First, recognition. Harrington recognized the threat at 90 seconds, not 10 minutes, not when it became critical. At the first sign, that vibration, that slight airspeed drop. He knew what it meant, and he did not wait for confirmation. Most pilots wait. They want to be sure, want to gather more data, want to see if it gets worse. That delay kills them, because by the time you are sure, you are already compromised. Harrington did not wait for certainty. He acted on probability. 90 seconds of symptoms meant high probability of severe icing ahead. High probability was enough. He moved. Second, decisiveness. No committee decision, no consensus building, no asking permission. Harrington made the call, alone, immediately, and committed fully. He did not hedge, did not keep one foot in both worlds, did not stay on the radio hoping command would agree. He turned it off, cut the tie, burned the bridge, made the decision irreversible. That level of commitment is rare. Most people want an escape route, want to be able to change their mind, want to preserve optionality. But preserving optionality costs time, and time is the resource you are spending. So Harrington chose commitment over optionality, chose action over consensus. Third, acceptance. Harrington accepted the consequences, accepted mission failure, accepted career risk, accepted the possibility that he would survive and have to live with survivor's guilt. He made peace with those outcomes before he turned the yoke. That is what let him act without hesitation. He had already processed the cost, already decided the cost was acceptable. So when the moment came, there was no internal debate, just execution. Most people cannot do that, cannot accept that survival might come with a price they have to pay forever. So they hesitate, hope for a solution that does not cost anything, hope for the perfect answer that saves the mission and the crew and the career. That hope is what kills them. Harrington did not hope. He calculated, decided, and acted. In that order, in 90 seconds. That is what saved him. Not heroism, not some special quality, just recognition plus decisiveness plus acceptance equals survival. Simple formula, incredibly hard to execute, because every instinct fights against it. We are wired to complete what we started, to follow authority, to avoid looking weak or scared, to believe we can handle more than we actually can. Those instincts served our ancestors, kept them alive on the savannah, kept them working together, kept them pushing through hardship. But those same instincts kill pilots in icing conditions, kill them reliably, predictably, has been killing them since humans started flying, still killing them today. Because the environment changed, but the brain did not. We are still running savannah software in a sky that does not care about persistence or courage or loyalty. And this pattern extends beyond aviation, way beyond. Medical emergencies follow the same logic. You feel chest pain. Mild at first. You tell yourself it is indigestion, stress, nothing serious. You wait, see if it gets better. That delay costs heart muscle. By the time you admit it is serious and call for help, you have lost critical time. The outcome is worse because you waited for certainty instead of acting on probability. Business failures follow the same pattern. Company losing money every month, revenues declining. You tell yourself it is temporary. Market conditions, bad quarter. You adjust, compensate, hope it turns around. That hope costs you months. By the time you accept the business is dying and make hard decisions, you are out of runway, out of options. Bankruptcy is inevitable because you spent your time resource hoping instead of acting. Relationships follow it too. Toxic dynamic, getting worse slowly. You tell yourself you can fix it, work harder, communicate better, give it more time. That time costs you. The damage accumulates, the dysfunction embeds deeper. By the time you accept it is unsalvageable and leave, you have trauma that takes years to heal. Damage that would have been minimal if you left at the first clear signs. The pattern is universal. When conditions are actively degrading, when staying makes it worse over time, when time itself is the threat, your only advantage is recognizing early and acting immediately. Not acting when you are certain. Acting when probability crosses a threshold, because certainty comes too late. Certainty is the luxury of hindsight. Harrington understood this. 90 seconds of symptoms. High probability of severe icing. That was enough. He moved. But most people never move. They wait for certainty, for permission, for a perfect solution, for conditions to improve on their own. And while they wait, the countdown continues. The window closes, the options narrow, until finally they are forced to act, and the action no longer works because they spent the resource that could have saved them. Time. Now let me tell you the thing that bothers me most about this story. The thing I keep coming back to. The thing that made me spend months researching Project Ice Devil and reading Harrington's journal and listening to that 6-hour interview. The military knew. They documented it. They proved it. They created a classified program that concluded pilots need authorization to abort missions immediately when encountering icing. No permission required. No penalty for false alarms. Just, if you see ice, you leave. Period. That recommendation was made in October 1944. It was not implemented. Not because it was wrong, but because it undermined command authority. Because if you authorize pilots to make unilateral decisions based on their judgment, you weaken the command structure. You introduce uncertainty into mission planning. You accept that some missions will abort unnecessarily. So command chose to maintain authority over outcomes, chose to accept icing deaths as the cost of that control. That is the calculation. That is the truth that stayed classified for 50 years. Not that ice was dangerous. They knew that. Everyone knew that. The classified part was that command knew pilots needed authority to leave and chose not to give it to them. Chose to let them die rather than cede control. Because control matters more than individual lives in military calculus. Has to. Otherwise, you cannot function, cannot execute operations, cannot win wars. I understand that logic. I do. Wars require hierarchy, require orders, require people following commands even when they disagree. That is how militaries work. Has to be. But understanding it does not make me comfortable with it. Does not make me okay with 40 men dying because the system valued mission completion over crew survival. And here is the really disturbing part. This still happens. Not in military aviation necessarily, but in every system where hierarchy and authority override individual judgment. Corporations where employees see problems but cannot speak up because it undermines management. Medical systems where nurses see errors but cannot override doctors. Bureaucracies where frontline workers see failures but cannot break protocol. Same pattern, same outcome. People die, suffer, fail, because the system prioritizes authority over truth, control over outcomes, procedure over reality. Harrington broke that pattern, turned off the radio, took authority he was not given, made a decision the system explicitly denied him the right to make. And that decision saved his life, but nearly destroyed his career, nearly got him court-martialed. Would have, if 40 other men had not died, proving he was right. So, he got lucky in a horrible way. Lucky that the proof of his correctness was written in enough blood that command could not ignore it. Lucky that the casualties were severe enough to justify his insubordination retroactively. But what about the pilots who broke protocol in conditions that were not quite that severe? Who left formations early but did not have mass casualties to justify it? They got punished, court-martialed, dishonorably discharged. Cowards. The difference between Harrington and them was not judgment, was not correctness, was just the death toll that day happened to be high enough to vindicate him. That is not a system. That is a lottery. Survival lottery, where you gamble your career on how many other people die. And that system, that lottery, that is what the classification was protecting. Not tactics, not technology. Just the ugly truth that command knew the problem and chose not to fix it because fixing it meant ceding control. 50 years. That is how long they kept that truth locked away, until everyone who might care was too old or too dead to demand accountability. Now here we are, 80 years later. I am telling you this story, and you are probably thinking, at least we learned, at least we fixed it, at least modern systems do not work that way anymore. Except they do. Different contexts, same pattern, systems that prioritize control over survival, authority over truth, procedure over outcomes, and people still die, still suffer, still fail, because we have not learned the lesson, because the lesson is too uncomfortable, too threatening to hierarchy, too dangerous to control. The lesson is this: sometimes the right answer is to break the rules, disobey orders, trust your judgment over authority, leave when the system tells you to stay. And you cannot teach that, cannot systematize it, cannot make it procedure. Because if you do, it stops being breaking the rules and becomes following different rules. And then the system adapts, creates new rules, new constraints, new ways to prioritize control over outcomes. So it has to stay individual, has to stay judgment-based, has to stay uncomfortable. Harrington made the call. Chen and Kowalski trusted him. They survived. 40 other men followed orders, trusted the system. They died. Both groups did what they thought was right. Both acted according to their training and values and understanding of duty. The difference was not morality, was not correctness, was just one group prioritized survival over mission. The other did not. And that choice is still hard, still costs something, still requires accepting consequences that might follow you the rest of your life. Harrington carried those 40 names for 60 years, wrote about them in his journal, dreamed about them at night, wondered constantly if he could have saved them, if he had tried harder, argued longer, convinced them to come with him. That burden nearly broke him, would have broken most people. But he carried it and turned it into purpose, taught thousands of students, saved lives, passed the knowledge forward. That is the real legacy, not the survival, not the decision. But what he did with the time he bought, he could have just lived quietly, forgotten about it, moved on. But he did not. He made it matter, made sure the 40 deaths meant something, made sure the lessons survived, even if they did not. And the lesson is simple, brutal, universal. When the environment is eating you alive, when time is the only resource, when every second makes survival less likely, you do not manage it, you do not hope, you do not wait for permission. You recognize it, you decide, you accept the cost, and you leave. That is Harrington's law. That is what they classified for 50 years. That is the truth about survival.